All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Talkin Ball Postgame Live with Pat Leonard. I am the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. Another Giants game, another Giants loss. 27-22, Washington Commanders defeat the New York Giants. Giants defense, 2 quarterback hits, no sacks on the special Commanders rookie quarterback. Daniel Jones, 0 passing yards in the first half. Giants offense comes alive in the second half. Daniel Jones with 3 touchdowns on the day, 1 rushing and 2 passing. But in the end, the Giants don't get it done. A host of reasons why. A killer turnover in the first half on their first pass play, a screen drawn up where Chris Hubbard, the backup left tackle, now the Giants' third-string left tackle, technically gets roasted off the edge and surrenders a fumble there. Daniel Jones trying to throw the screen and get that away. That ends up getting the Commanders on the board early after a defensive stop to start. And from there, the Giants were playing catch up from behind. Of course, some serious defensive breakdowns throughout this game, starting with the defensive line in both the run and the pass game, and then trickling over, of course, to the offensive game planning early on, where I thought Dan Quinn, whose game plan was not strong for Malik Nabers and the Giants offense in week 2 at Washington, I thought very clearly that Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn of the Commanders adjusted. They were doubling Nabers in the first half. They were for sure adjusting to the idea that, listen, we can't just leave this guy on an island. We can't just play this guy one-on-one, and we have to attack him and force Daniel Jones to go elsewhere. Frankly, I thought the Commanders were content with leaving their numbers, with the Giants having an extra guy in the box and trusting their guys to win those matchups. And early on, the Giants were rattling off big gains in the running game. The problem was that turnover forced, and the fact that Brian Daboll then leaned completely into running the ball and not throwing it at all and showing any confidence the rest of the first half in his passing game. They ended up in the first quarter, they called 16 runs to 3 passes. And eventually you see that when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who's not under pressure because the Giants defensive line wasn't getting to him and really flustering him at all, combine that with the tackling errors and the miscues and coverage on the back end, and it was kind of a perfect storm of a lot of frustration and unacceptable play and results on the defensive side of the ball and in general. And after the game, some interesting frustration. So Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns sitting at Lawrence's locker for a long time after the game was over. Brian Burns, so if you can picture this, Lawrence was sitting at a seat facing his own locker. Brian Burns, whose locker is across the room, was sitting with his back against the wall facing Lawrence in the outside of the room or the center of the room. Sitting there, uniform pants still on, his undershirt of his uniform still on, his eye black and face paint still on his face, the sweat dripping. And they were talking. And they were talking about what went wrong, what can they do better. And coming out of that scene, some interesting conversations. Dexter Lawrence said they just outplayed us. I think the offense played well enough for us to win. The defense just got beat up today. Brian Burns said that what they were talking about, and he wouldn't reveal exactly, he wanted to keep it private respectfully, he said. But he did say that they talked about things that need to change for this week coming up. I asked if he knows what needs to change. He said yes, starting with the details, but obviously other things on their mind. And then Lawrence kind of snapped, kind of resented the question about what they were discussing and whether that scene reflected frustration. He said, if I'm talking to my teammate, that ain't nothing for you to be concerned about. We were just talking about the game and what we are going to do to be better. Now, Malik Nabers over at his locker earlier had some interesting words as well. So you saw held without a catch in the first half, came alive in the second half. The Giants threw the ball better in the second half, committed more to it, called more passing plays. Daniel Jones, interestingly enough, you have to imagine, played too well in this game to bench the guy, right? Because in the first half, the main reason he didn't have any passing yards was because they didn't call a lot of pass plays. And when they did, they got completely blown up on these screens. And then in the second half, 3 touchdowns, including a rushing TD, 2 passing TDs. So kind of hard to pin this one on the quarterback. And Malik Nabers, nevertheless, asked about different elements of this game afterwards. So he said that amid his disappointment, he rationalized, this is the 21-year-old rookie receiver for the Giants, he rationalized that he would rather build something from the ground up because, quote, it feels better when you come from the mud and start winning successfully. And when he was asked if the Giants can do that here was Nabers' answer. He said, yeah, you've just got to build. You've got to build up. You've got to put the right people in place to be successful. You've got to get the right keys. You've got to get the right guys on the team to win. Obviously, the Commanders have done that. They've got the right guys that they want to be on the team, and they're winning. Now, listen, 21 years old, but it's hard to imagine and interpret this as anything other than Nabers saying the Giants need different or better players. And he's not wrong about that, obviously, right? That's not an incorrect statement by Malik Nabers that the Commanders look like they're at a different place and further ahead than the Giants, and that's what he sees when he looks. Then again, that's a tough thing for the Giants operation to hear because this is a 3-year regime process now for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. And we're past the point where the Dave Gettleman blame game can happen, right? Chris Hubbard's on that field because Evan Neal was a draft pick of Joe Schoen's. Josh Azeez was a draft pick of Joe Schoen's. All the other depth pieces and moves that they made were Joe Schoen's. They ran Azeez back last year. They end up signing Hubbard off the Niners practice squad. Now he's in there at left tackle. None of this is a Dave Gettleman thing. Joe Schoen's first season, he signed Mark Lewinsky at guard, John Feliciano at center, and he drafted Evan Neal, Josh Azeez, and Marcus McKeithen. Azudu's not good. Neal can't play and doesn't play. I think he played one snap today as well on the goal line. That's his second snap of the season. McKeithen's not on the team. Feliciano's not on the team. And losing that edge, honestly, has hurt them. And Glowinski's not on the team. So that was the year one startup process of rebuilding the offensive line that's brought us to the position and the place we are today. Now you look at the rookie class that has been promising, obviously, from the Giants in certain areas this year with guys like Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Nabers. But another rough day, kind of second straight rough day for a lot of those rookies. Tracy obviously had a big game against Pittsburgh, but second straight week, Drew Phillips has had a really tough game. Theo Johnson caught a touchdown, also had 2 killer drops in this game. And Tyler Nubin, the rookie safety, a really rough outing as well. But it's impossible to put the Giants' problems on the rookies. But when you look at this as an overall process and an evaluation of where the Giants are, it's just, again, it's like a dam with 50 different holes and you're trying to plug each one. And every time you plug one, another leak springs. That's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. And to be honest, I thought my takeaway from listening to Burns, hearing Nabers' comments and just listening to everybody in the locker room, the leaders of this team, I think what they're saying, this is my analysis, okay? My analysis is that there need to be changes, but the changes to make them better right now are not coming. That's what I think my takeaway is from the feel of those conversations and comments. So in other words, now I did ask Brian Burns, do you think, like, at what point during a season does it become too late? And Burns' answer to that, the exact words I want to give you, he said, I'm not sure. That's too soon to say. I wouldn't know. And then he was asked, do you think the Giants can turn this around? He said, it's the NFL. Stranger things have happened. People go on runs all the time. He said there were a lot of 2-6 teams, recently, so it's on us to capitalize off our opportunities. Somebody pressed and said, do you think you guys can be one of those teams that goes on a run? He said, definitely. But I think the overall feeling is there's too many issues. Yeah, it's just too many issues. And, as I wrap up my kind of monologue here to start our Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard post-game live podcast here on the Believe Network and on my YouTube channel, PL on NFL. Remember, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, rate, review, subscribe, but also come join us live on the YouTube page on the Believe Network, PL on NFL. Subscribe, join our lives, join the live chats, And please, everybody, while you are here, hit that like button while we go. That helps improve engagement, brings Giants fans here, talk about what's coming. Now, one other element I want to get to before I jump into the questions, we talk about our sponsors a little bit quickly, is, talking to Azeez Ojulari after the game. He does not know, he said no one's told him anything. To me, it felt like goodbye to Azeez. It felt like, an understanding on my end, on his end, on everybody's end, that this could be and is likely his last game as a Giant. We don't know if that's going to happen for sure. Nobody said those exact words to me, but that's how it feels. That's how it felt. Azeez, a Giant to the end, says like he feels like, this team has a lot, what it takes to be good. They haven't put it together yet. He doesn't want to leave New York. That's not that's not on his mind, but he understands the business type of thing. But in my opinion, the conversation and the feeling of it, I do believe he will end up getting traded, or at least that I don't think he would be surprised if he got traded. Now, Darius Slayton is in the concussion protocol. I believe you would be allowed as an NFL team to make a trade for a player like that, and pending a physical prior to Tuesday at 4 p.m. And then if he passes, you could either it would go through, or he doesn't pass the physical and it wouldn't go through. But I have to confirm that. That's just my belief based on how these types of transactions tend to work. And regardless of whether you could do that or not, I do think it's probably fair to say that it probably decreases the likelihood of a team rushing to pay top dollar or top asset for a guy who is banged up at that point and that you can't get your hands around the exact nature of it. And also where the Giants stand at 2-7, who are you putting on the field if Darius Slayton gets traded at wide receiver to prevent this team from going completely in the tank? Because there's just no confidence in anybody behind Darius Slayton from a playtime perspective from the coaching staff. So that's something to remember as well. So as I sit here and now after the game, it does feel a little bit like Azeez Ojulari won't be a Giant and Darius Slayton will, but, we will have to see because definitely like 24 hours as we sit here now talking about it to figure out what's going to happen there. But like I said, that's my best read on that. Patrick Evans reminds you all to hit that subscribe and like button. Like I said, and like Patrick is saying, thank you, Patrick, for reminding everybody. Please hit the like button while we are live. That does a lot for us. And subscribe to the channel if you don't already. Really appreciate those subscriptions. The Daniel Jones anytime touchdown hit today. And also I had Brian Robinson Jr. getting in, obviously, when he was inactive. That shifts over to Austin Eckler. He gets in. The Tyrone Tracy Jr. receiving yards did not hit. I whiffed on that one. So that was a bummer. But the Commanders did cover. I did have them covering, and they do cover with a 5-point win on a 4-point spread. So those are all part of Pat's Picks. And I do Pat's Picks every week, and that's with MyBookie, our sponsor, Sportsbook. They're rolling out the red carpet this year for sports bettors in their 10th year anniversary. They have a new loyalty rewards program called MyBookie Plus. If you sign up there, you'll get exclusive promotions, cash back in your account. If you want to win this football season, win with MyBookie, whether you're betting my Giants sprinkle props, my Pat's Picks on the spreads every week, or you just like betting the favorites, the underdogs, whatever it is. I'm a big prop and parlay guy. Love that stuff. So if you want to get in on the action, use MyBookie, open an account today. And here's the deal. If you go to the link in my social media profile, so that's on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. So on Twitter, I'm P Leonard NYDN, and everywhere else, I'm PL on NFL. If you go to that link and to make a first deposit and use the promo code Pat's Picks, you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000, plus a $10 casino chip. So bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Let's win. Also brought to you here by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. Boom Chaga is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I pour mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Also, stay tuned on Monday, November 4th. Going to drop a 20 or 25-minute episode. Rich Funk, the co-founder of Boom Chaga, and he joins the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast, recorded it the other day, and goes into detail about the health benefits of Boom Chaga, what makes it different from other chaga and mushroom products, why chaga is so healthy, testimonials from people about what it has done from people who have used this supplement, and a really fun conversation, informative. Rich knows a lot, very engaging. He's also a Cincinnati Bengals fan, so we talk about the Bengals a little bit. They just had a big win today over the lowly Raiders. So check that episode out on Monday, November 4th, when it drops. And, of course, we're also brought to you here by Estate 98 Coffee. Estate 98 is a specialty coffee concentrate that is perfect when you want to make a quick cup of coffee and skip the lines. Takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced or hot coffee. It's great as a mixer for espresso martinis, and each bottle can make up to 16 cups. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special offer. It's an exclusive offer, 80% off your first order of Estate 98. So we had been doing the buy one, get one. Now we're offering you an exclusive offer, 80% off your first order. So that's 80% off your first bottle. Go to estate98.com/talkinball today. All right, let's get into your questions. Remember, if you purchase a super chat or a super sticker on this chat, I will address or answer your comments or questions first. So that means we start with Joel Lopez. Joel, what's up? Welcome back. He says, totally disgusted with this team. Our middle linebackers keep playing out of position, no help in the running game. The secondary can't cover anyone, and don't get me started with the left tackle situation. Yeah, interesting point, Joel. I think also what's missing from your critique there, and this is something that I really noticed in a big way today, but I also felt was lacking in the conversation coming off the Steelers game, is yes, of course, Deonte Banks deserved to be blamed and benched for quitting on plays. He wasn't benched for that, but then he was benched last game, mid-game, mid-first half. For missed tackling, supposedly. It seemed like basically Dexter Lawrence, wasn't interested in having him on the field anymore, is how it came off based on the kind of the way that events happened and the chronology of it all. But to me, like when you have the league worst run defense, okay, the defensive line is not showing up. As Dexter Lawrence has some big stats and has had a really good year individually, but these big running plays, like Austin Eckler had a 20-yard run today that set up his eventual Eckler's 1-yard touchdown run. There's just a gaping hole in the defensive line on a run like that. And the Giants' defensive front, even though it has had a bunch of sacks this season prior to today, has created some pressure and does have, the best players on the Giants defense are on the line. They're just as culpable as everybody else. Like some of these missed tackles happening at the second level by the linebackers are because the running back is coming downhill with no resistance. So it's all tied together. And I thought Dexter Lawrence actually accepted that today. Like he accepted the responsibility of basically they kicked our ass and they outcompeted us and they beat us. So, I felt like I think everything you just said is accurate, though. Yeah, the left tackle situation is just – that's personnel, This personnel. Who, the rationalization of draft picks, I mean, it's it's sad that there is a circular blame game conversation about what's actually wrong in some of these situations, right? Giant stats for you: 2-7, 0-4 in the division, 0-5 at home. Giants are 4-12-1 against NFC East teams since Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen took over. Giants have a minus 63 point differential. Cowboys in their division are minus 54. Eagles are 39 with a game going on right now. Washington's plus 74. To put the Giants minus 63 point differential in perspective, Cleveland is minus 65. New England's minus 76. Tennessee minus 73. Vegas minus 83. Jacksonville minus 52. Carolina is just on another level, minus 146. But did you see Jonathan Brooks is coming back and making his NFL debut next week for Carolina at running back? That is something to be concerned about. Joel, thank you so much for the super chat to get us started there. Jim says, Pat, now that it's clear we are several years away from contention, would you be willing to trade Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas for high draft picks? I wouldn't want to stay if I was an all-pro. Well, Andrew Thomas injured right now. I mean, obviously he's a really good player. Franchise left tackle. I mean, they don't grow on trees. I know he's been hurt a bunch now, but here's the thing, Jim. You don't get better by getting rid of good players. And forget the Giants for a second and just step away and just think about, when teams give away good players, it does not help them. And yes, for sure, the Giants would be well served having a high enough pick to get a new franchise quarterback. That's a part of this. But if you like the Giants, and these are players who Saquon Barkley, Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, guys like that. Those are players who are not, at premium positions that Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence play. But getting rid of those players and replacing them with players who were not as good has hurt the team. And if you got rid of a Dexter Lawrence, if you got rid of an Andrew Thomas, the team would get worse, and you would be in a position where you would have to go find premium players at those positions again. Now, you could, I think it's fair to say, I don't think it's unfair to say that deep down, players like Dexter Lawrence and, well, it sounds like the way Malik Nabers talks, right? Like there are players of a certain stature, for them to be on a team like this, especially when it's just year after year of losing, it wears on them, and you can see it wearing on Dexter Lawrence. And certainly he has believed for years that the Giants were heading in a certain direction that it is clear now they are not. I don't think it would be a stretch to say probably be welcome for guys like that to be in a situation where they weren't constantly talking about losing. But, Dexter was asked last week if he is if this is a situation he wants to bail on. And he said in so many words, no, and kind of dismissed the premise. Kyler says, what has Brian Daboll done for people to keep saying he's good? If we can say a player was good because no tape, why can't we say that about coaches? 2022, no tape on Daboll as a coach. Everyone knows his tendencies. Agreed, Kyler. I think that today's first half was an indication of what happens when, Dan Quinn and Joe Witt got a game full of tape on the Giants and on Nabers and on Jones. I thought their first half scheme against the Giants passing game and against Nabers, I thought it reflected that the Commanders adjusted and the Giants offense had a plan to run the ball, but no answers on how to unlock their passing game. And, eventually they did. Eventually it happened, but it was too little, too late. And of course, again, it just ended up being a resorting to like feeding Malik Nabers. But, Nabers had a quote about kind of the balance of the offense and running heavy in the first half. He said, when you run the clock out in the first half, you're scratching in the second half to score points, as many as possible. As an offense, you've got to be versatile. You've got to be able to run. You've got to be able to pass. You can't pick between half and half what you want to do. But like I said, I'm not the play caller. So, Iconic, what's up? He says, will you be in the Munich game? I think we need to clean house, or we will be in the bottom of the division for the next 10 years. I do hear you, Iconic. You want a high draft pick. You do want to get some assets, but you also don't want to empty the cupboard to the point where you're going to finish with 2, 3, or 4 wins, because then everyone's going to get fired. I do think it's possibly heading in that direction. We will see. Unfortunately, I am not going to the Munich game, Iconic. The New York Daily News decided that both of these teams are not competitive, and with it being an expensive trip, there is other work that I can accomplish and still cover the team and be here to provide you guys with in-depth coverage of the team, working the phones, and really only missing a Friday practice in Munich. It's a walkthrough and then the game. I can't say I'm happy about not going to the stadium. I always want to be there, but I will still bring you guys the first-rate insider coverage that you're always looking for, and of course, we'll be there during the bye week for everything going down, Joe Shane press conference, etc., and then right back at it on the Giants schedule coming out of the bye. I believe they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after that. So yeah, no pints for me in Munich, unfortunately, no Steins in Munich, and no international travel for me. Gary says, hi, Pat, did you ask Daboll why he keeps going for 2? They're killing our momentum when they fail. To me, just kick the extra point going down by 7, shaking my head. Gary, unfortunately, his stock answer about analytics-based, the plan was to go for it coming into the game. He said that he felt good about the plays they called. They just put a stop to it. The Commanders stopped them on defense. To me, I thought the tone of Daboll's press conference was that he felt like the offense did its job and the defense didn't. Dexter Lawrence said the same thing. I do feel like, it's not like 22 points is very many points in a football game. Certainly the defense was a huge letdown today across the board. And if they got even a semi-respectable effort from the defense, then they would have had a chance to win it. I agree with that. I still don't think that the offense was anywhere close. I mean, they had 0 passing yards at halftime. I don't know how you could say that the offense was cooking. I do believe that one thing I thought was interesting, looking at the post-game comments, listening to Jason Pinnock, listening to Burns and Lawrence, guys on the defense, I do feel like this is the second week that someone on the defense has said the word scheme to me, discussing the idea of what's going wrong on some of their big plays. In other words, the offense scheming up plays and tendencies to either counter what the Giants defense is doing or to take advantage and to catch the Giants defense off guard or to use their tendencies against them. No one has pointed a finger hard and directly and by name at Shane Bowen, the coordinator, and at the coaches. But I definitely feel like the Giants' defensive players view their breakdowns as multifaceted. Like Pinnock said, there were various ways that the Giants' defense is getting beat on the big plays. He said sometimes it's just mano-a-mano, we lose the battle. He said sometimes it's schematic, and then he said sometimes it's situationally they're just calling the right play. So he said the over route over top of the defense to who was that to? Was that let me get this correct. To Olamide Zacchaeus, the over route to him in the fourth quarter. he said, it was like situational. Let's run a hard, like run play action, get them to bite, go over top. So, multifaceted for sure. But Pinnock was for sure one of the, and several of them were mentioning, and this is the second week too, like in Pittsburgh, there was a comment somebody passed about the scheme. So I feel like that is for sure something to keep an eye on as we go. But definitely, yes, the defense had a bad day today. Yes, no sacks, 2 quarterback hits, bad angles, lots of missed tackles, but the offense played a part too. So, full team loss, which has become commonplace, unfortunately. All right. Timothy says apathetic. Yes, that is how the fan base, a large part of the fan base, I think, feels at the moment. The crowd was better today than I expected it to be. It was more of a full house than I expect. I don't know if that's the weather. I don't know if it's that it's still fairly early in the season. Even though the Giants are done, it is November 3rd. It's not December 3rd. So maybe that's a part of it. But the fans left disappointed. Such an interesting dynamic, too, now that you have a Daniel Jones in the quarterback situation where it was headed towards a benching, but now he played well, and he wasn't the reason you lost the game, right? So Joey B says, Pat, Theo Johnson has more drops than Rain. He is trash. Killing them. Just killing them. Alex says, horrible coaching decisions. Jim says, Giants not re-signing Tyrod Taylor. How is that decision going to play out now when they have to bench Daniel Jones? They must be afraid of going to lock. Well, I would say, do you think Daniel Jones is the reason they lost? I mean, I don't think this is that game. I mean, that's my opinion. But I do agree, Jim, with your premise. I do agree with what you're saying in the sense that they are much less comfortable going to their backup now, you have to believe, than they would be if Tyrod was still here. Still makes no sense to me that they thought Tyrod was coming back in the first place. Drip says the game was closer than I thought. We got swept by the Commanders. Yes, first Commanders sweep of the Giants since 2021. Chris says, I do think they should play corners in press instead of zone. Deonte Banks is better in press than in zone. That's what I will say. George says, arena security's most feared man on Sundays when they just want to go home. The one and only Pat Leonard. George, thank you. Appreciate you. You know who it is. You know the name. You know the name. Kyler says, Kafka is saying, this is not on my hands, Baldy. My offense went to and won a playoff game. Can't blame me now. Baldy. You guys are funny. George says, what do you think is going to happen at the trade deadline, Pat? I think Azeez gets traded. I'm not sure if Darius Slayton does anymore with the concussion. We'll see. Other than that, hard to look at the Giants roster and see like pieces all over the place that would bring value back to them. Be interesting to see. David says, what does Mike Kafka do during games and practice? I will say this about Kafka. That handoff to Darius Slayton, to me, looked a lot like a Chiefs play, didn't it? And listen, Brian Daboll gets credit for calling it. It was a nice call at the right time in the red zone. I think it was an 11-yard gain in the red zone, helped set up a touchdown. So good call by Daboll, and he deserves credit for a good play. So if he installed it, it might be his play. But that looked to me like a Chiefs play, like maybe a Kafka wrinkle. During games, he's up in the box. Believe what he's doing is helping track the defense, the Washington Commanders and the opponent's defensive tendencies, just like other assistant coaches and even scouts are doing, tracking personnel, things like that to try to get a read on how to evolve the game plan. So kind of I would describe him as on the periphery of the process and the conversations, involved in it, but on the periphery. Jonathan says, if we lose to the Panthers, we're only winning 2 games this year. I predicted them to win 4 games, and I might overshoot. The Mule says, what a game Germany is going to experience. You'd say that again. George O says, I wonder if Pat questioned Daboll on his job security. Well, I don't know if you're taking a dig at me, but I hope this game shows you and this season shows you why I asked him that in week 2. Hope it justifies it. Maybe you don't view it that way, but that's how I see it. Patrick says, I have nothing left positive to say. Every weekend, it's the same thing. What's the purpose of drafting a top-tier wide receiver if we aren't going to use him? Well, you hope that you're just getting a really positive, exciting building block that in the long run is going to be like a foundational piece, right? So that's the hope. That's the intention that you're trying to do there. So, theoretically, you have Nabers and then you get the right quarterback on board. That's how you turn into a good program, is by stacking great players, right? So that's the idea. That's the hope. They hope it turns out that way, but we will see. All right, let's see. Manzo says, I don't believe it's fair that Shane and Daboll didn't have a chance to draft their own quarterback, but at this point, I don't think they deserve to. We have no depth at quarterback or tackle. Yeah, I agree. Ideally, they would have drafted their own one, but they've also played a huge part in all the decisions they've made to retain and re-sign this quarterback, to put themselves in the position they're in now, to not protect that quarterback. The quarterback can still make good plays when you protect him, when he has weapons, but when you don't deploy them properly, you don't manage games properly, you don't draft well, so you don't have a good line and a good defense, then the quarterback obviously is flawed and not good enough either in key moments when you need him to be. It's just an overall shutdown. It's just there's problems everywhere. Will says, Pat, with more than a decade of bad hires, missed draft picks, and poor leadership, what are the chances ownership outsources to a third party to assist in the next hiring cycle if Joe and Daboll are gone? I say 0% chance, Will. That doesn't, unless the Tisch family forced it, I don't think that would happen. I guess, it would have to be the way that it happened before. With Wellington Mara and his, nephew, I believe, where they didn't get along. And so then it required the league to mediate, and George Young ends up getting placed. And then, the Mara's version of the story is that Wellington wanted George Young, but he knew if he suggested it would get shot down. So he asks the league to propose it, right? So, I guess there is precedent for it, but I wouldn't say that I would expect that. Dave Z says, Pat, thanks for all that you do. You got it. Too bad every week for the past 12 years. It's been just demoralizing. 2016 and 2022 were bright spots to a degree, but other than that, we've been in the doldrums. I've lost faith. Yeah, Dave, it's hard to have faith right now. I think one major takeaway I have from my time covering the Giants, and listen, I'm not saying this is easy. I know human nature is to, when you're starved for success and you have a little bit of it, even when you're trying not to overreact to it, you get excited. You start to feel like, okay, this is what we were going for. It justifies the decisions you've made. It tells you you're on the right track. But you mentioned the 2016 and 2022 seasons. The Giants have such a hard time as an organization handling success. They overreact to it, and they make decisions to put themselves in a position where they try to win quickly, and they try to build themselves to the point where they are taking that quick success and turning it into sustained success. But the problem is you don't just become good overnight. And the Giants in 2016 and the Giants in 2020 going into 2021 with Gettleman Judge, and then the Giants 2022 going into 2023. They have a little bit of success. And by success, I mean forget the record or whatever, like in 2022, they were 9-7-1. They weren't some great team. They just wildly exceeded expectations on the outside. And so exceeding those expectations, it's like they go all in. They trade for a Darren Waller. They make these big-time signings. They splash money where they think that they're one or two moves away from turning themselves into a contender and somebody who's going to turn over a new leaf. And what they end up doing is they don't stick with those processes, and they end up over investing in a flawed process that is not ready yet. And what happens is they set themselves back by doing that. And so what they need to do is, yes, stay the course, but stay the course on a good process. Like, I don't think this current process is a sound one. I believe this regime already did the, hey, we exceeded expectations in year one. We're good now. We figured it out. We know how to deploy Daniel Jones. We're good enough as coaches and as evaluators to now build this the right way with this player and not that player. And it fell right on their face, flat on their face, over evaluating their own talent and their own abilities in that regard with this roster. And now they're trying to buy more time, but the process was flawed from the beginning. That's how I view it. Daniel Hirsch checks in with a $10 super chat. Daniel, thank you so much. Daniel's giving you guys an example of how to support the channel here, Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard on the Believe Network and on the YouTube channel, PL on NFL. That's the home of all of my Giants interviews. I'll post Brian Burns' full post-game interview on the channel a little bit later. Also, some fun interviews and videos, whether it's from practice or the locker room or just me talking about my time on the beat on YouTube Shorts. A lot to digest and consume on YouTube, including 11 minutes of Jerome Henderson discussing Deonte Banks' benching, his accountability, and everything. That is on the YouTube channel as well. I think once you get in there, you'll really enjoy maneuvering around and learning a lot about the team. Supplements and complements, obviously, the work I do at the New York Daily News. But this is a great way to support the channel. Daniel paying for a $10 super chat. I get right to his question or comment first. Also, great way to support the channel is to go to our sponsors. That is MyBookie, Boom Chaga, and Estate 98 Coffee. MyBookie, the sportsbook, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and Estate 98 Coffee. So, Daniel says, Daboll going for 2. Why is he allowed to keep getting away with this stuff? His play calling alone should get him fired. He makes Daniel Jones worse. Daniel, also, I feel like it's a huge letdown for the team in these moments where I think it's a huge letdown when the Giants finally get in the damn end zone. And then instead of kicking an extra point to be down 7, you go for 2 and don't get it. And everyone comes off the field like, well, we kind of failed, and now you're down 8 and now you're still chasing it. And, I don't like it. You're not just any other team. The analytics have to change based on what your team is. You're a team that doesn't get in the end zone easily, that doesn't convert easily. You get in the end zone, kick the extra point, stay down 7. Then you kick the next extra point, and you're only a field goal away. Now, listen, today, maybe it doesn't change anything because the Giants weren't stopping the Commanders. I mean, this game easily could have been, you saw at the end, the Commanders were ready to go score another touchdown. They get down to the 1-yard line, and then they just run out the clock. But they easily could have made this 34-22 instead of 27-22 there at the end. So, maybe it doesn't necessarily make a difference. But, Daniel, I agree. I think he's not reacting to how his team is actually not good at this. I think that Daboll gets caught in the moment of trying to prove he's aggressive and trying to put up as many points as possible. And you obviously had the here's an interesting thing to follow too. So in week 2, Graham Gano is hurt. They don't elevate a kicker. Graham Gano then gets hurt even more on the opening kickoff. They don't have a kicker the rest of the game. They try Jamie Gillen on an extra point. He misses. And then what happened? Daboll went for 2 every single time, went for every 4th down. Obviously, that was one factor that cost him the game. Now, was Daboll trying to make a point to somebody in the organization there that if you're going to have me play without a kicker, here's how I'm going to run the game? He didn't say that. I'm not putting words in his mouth. But is that a coach saying, like, look at the hand I've been dealt, here's what I'm doing? Because you look at this game, now Jude McTavish did kick a field goal, right? He made his only field goal and he made his only extra point. But then Daboll in the second half is going for 2-point conversions on these. Is he trying to make another point? Is he frustrated that he has Greg Joseph now on injured reserve? Now he has his 5th kicker on injured reserve in the last 2 years combined. I don't know. Something to consider, though. Something is off here. How about Brian Daboll's answer when asked if he could do anything differently, considering all his kickers keep getting hurt in practice? He says no. No? What do you mean no? Jonathan Ryan says, I bet that Rangers beat is looking real good right now. I loved covering the Rangers, especially because they were a good team for a lot of the times I was covering them. But I will say, football is family friendlier. That is for sure. And thank you for that super chat. Really appreciate that there, Jonathan. Patrick says, hey, Pat, what do you think about the Giants instead of trading Slayton if they trade Wan'Dale Robinson? I think Slayton is way more valuable than Wan'Dale. I just feel like sometimes they are feeding him because they drafted him. Patrick, don't hate that idea. I agree with why they feed him and why they use him so much. He was a talented gadget player coming out of college, and I still think that's what he is. He's not a full-fledged, NFL wide receiver. He is a playmaker who is more of a gadget player. That's what he is. Let's see. All right. Patrick, thank you very much for that super chat. It's $20 right there in the kitty from Patrick Evans. Really appreciate that. I don't know what you could get for Wan'Dale. That'd be an interesting question. I mean, he is an offensive weapon. Maybe a team that already has like a number one receiver, a number one running back, a tight end they trust, and even a secondary receiver that they like. A guy where you're not starting him. You're plugging him in and you're using him in kind of critical key situations as like a, kind of a creatively deployed playmaker. I could see that. But I don't know what he would fetch. That's kind of an interesting question there. All right, let's see. Thank you again for that super chat, Patrick. Really appreciate that. All right, we are going to do an Estate 98 trivia question. So stay tuned. Stay right here on Talkin Ball Live postgame with Pat Leonard. First, I just want to tell you guys again about our sponsors. MyBookie is a sports book. It's rolling out the red carpet for sports bettors this year. Go to mybookie.ag. The link is in all my social media profiles. And here's the best part. The deal they're offering now through me here on the Believe Network and on Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. If you go to the link in any of my social media profiles and you click on that link and you use the promo code PATSPICKS, that's PATSPICKS, you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000, plus a $10 casino chip. Pat's picks have been hitting these Giants props, these Giants sprinkles. Daniel Jones anytime touchdown hit today. That rushing TD hit, so you're making some money there. So go to MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Also brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you will get 25% off your first deposit. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today. Boomchaga.com right here. Talkin Ball 25, the QR code. And brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Estate 98 Coffee sponsors us here. You want to go to estate98.com/Talkin Ball to get an exclusive offer for 80% off your first order. Specialty coffee concentrate, perfect for when you want to make a quick cup of coffee and skip the lines. All right, let's get to our next comment or question in the queue here. Patrick, again, thank you very much for that. I promised the Estate 98 trivia question upcoming as well. So actually, let's go right to that. So for those of you not familiar with this, Estate 98 Coffee, our sponsor, they give away a free bottle every Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard when I ask these questions. It is Giants trivia. We ask a Giants trivia question. I'm going to give it to you now. Once I ask the question, you are going to drop your answers in the comments section. The first person to answer the question correctly gets a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. So once you get it right, I will call you out for getting it right, and then you will direct message me on Instagram an address or a P.O. box for me to send this free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. Okay. So here is our trivia question. Hope everybody is ready and locked in. Okay, so Daniel Jones in this game threw his first touchdown pass at MetLife Stadium in 672 calendar days. Obviously, he had the torn ACL, so that's a span of 6 games at MetLife Stadium that he hadn't thrown a touchdown. 672 calendar days that he had not thrown a touchdown pass at MetLife Stadium. The last touchdown passes he threw at MetLife were on January 1st, 2023. Who were the 2 wide receivers that Daniel Jones threw touchdown passes to in that game? Who were the 2 players that Daniel Jones threw touchdown passes to in that game on January 1st, 2023? The last time he threw touchdown passes in a game at MetLife Stadium. Bang. Right away. Whoever A is gets it immediately. Never seen somebody get a question correctly that quickly. A gets Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. That is correct. A, please send me your address or P.O. box on Instagram. Please give me your name too. Obviously, your name's not listed here, but drop your name and your address there on Instagram. My Instagram is PL on NFL. Direct message me there, and you will get a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee mailed directly to you. Congratulations on winning. And, man, a lot of people didn't even have time to get the answer in or even a guess in because A was so quick. Nice work. Dave Z, that is funny. Homer Jones and Del Schaffner, that is funny. Patrick drops it again, $10 in the queue. He says, instead of using Wandale for gadget plays, Pat, why don't they do the same for Nabers just to get him going early? Well, Patrick, they actually do like doing a lot of those types of catch and runs with Malik. The first third down today, was it their first third down? The play where they rolled, or it might have been their second drive, where Theo Johnson kind of leaked out to the right, and Daniel Jones threw it, and it either got batted down or tipped off his hands. I can't remember exactly. He was under pressure. On that play, Malik Nabers was running like that kind of hard, like drag route from the left to right, about 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, if that, across the field from left to right. And they've been hitting that a lot. And those catch and run plays are plays that they like to do to get him the ball in space. Now, that's not a trick play necessarily, but it's the same idea. And Washington had him doubled on that play. They were ready for that play. Also, they tried to run Nabers, a slant to Nabers at one point. And if you saw that in the first half, the Commanders, they knew exactly what was coming based on the formation, down and distance, situation of the game. And they had like 2 or 3 guys waiting to jump and bat down Daniel Jones's pass, and that's exactly what happened. So that was definitely part of that scheme we're talking about of Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. being ready for what Daboll was throwing at them. George says, I wonder if – I saw that already. Yep. Let's see. Manzo says – okay, let me get back in the queue here. D-Pat says, trade all expiring contracts and embrace the tank, hoping we lose to quarterback-hungry Carolina. Will says, I have little faith in Maritish making the right hire. The Giants have become the Knicks prior to them finally turning the corner. Need to nail this hire and then focus on the draft and the right players. A2 says, was Burns playing today? I must have missed him. Yeah, you could really say that about the entire pass rush. D says, yeah, Burns knocked down a ball at the line. Yeah, he did that and made an early run stop on the edge. But, D, to D's point, he made a couple plays. To A2's point, not nearly enough, and the pass rush was a no-show. Manzo says, we need Mike Vrabel. He better be our number one candidate for next year. We need someone with experience. Yeah, that'll be interesting. There's already a lot of Titans guys here already, including in the front office, Ryan Cowden, a friend of Joe Shane's. So that's a possibility. We'll see. I mean, Vrabel definitely ended up getting pushed out of there for, in the Titans' view, being too strong of a personality. Be interesting because this is an extremely, at the moment, GM-centric organization and really always has been in a large part or in a lot of ways. Recently is what I mean. So let's see. Expect Azeez to be traded, Pat. Yes, I do, Antonio. A2 says, nice tie, Pat. Thank you, A2. Appreciate that. I hope you guys went and checked out my arrival videos from today. I thought it was good. I enjoy doing those all the time. Players looked good. Dayton Belton bringing one of the fits of the year to the game. That's over on my Instagram account right now, but I'll throw it on YouTube Shorts later as well. Will says, I'm okay with trading Darius Slayton. Trading Azeez, who is becoming a solid player at only 24 years old, is criminal. Eagles will try to sign him next season. Joel says this backup left tackle plan is terrible. D wants to know if Azeez or his team reached out to the Falcons. I personally think that's a good fit for the Falcons. I don't know about people reaching out to the Falcons from Azeez's team. I do know that he would be a good fit there. Georgia product, right? So that would be home, right? Alex says Daboll has to go. Gary says Daboll looks to be in over his head, Pat. I'm not sure if he's the guy to get us out of this Bermuda Triangle. D says Steelers looking into wide receivers. Who are they targeting? Slayton on their radar or looking for someone better? So the Steelers have Pickens. They have Calvin Austin. Definitely think one thing they would benefit from is reliability at wide receiver. I mean, those guys give them some big playability. Slayton gives big playability as well. He's also pretty well-rounded as a guy who can help, can block, make those catches underneath for sure. Specifically, are the Steelers trying to get Slayton? Haven't heard that yet. I know that they've been looking at all the top names, off season into the season. So, I think they're big game hunting. So if there's bigger game out there than Slayton, I would think they would go for that. But if Slayton is the most reasonably priced, useful player, would not surprise me. The Texans look like a team that needs a player like him. I mean, they're getting Nico Collins back eventually, and Tank Dell. Tank Dell's out there, but they really don't have much useful outside of that. They look like a team like that too. The only question with Slayton is he has the concussion now, and then, what are you getting back for him, right? Patrick says, tell Daboll to have Theo Johnson hit the jugs machine. He can be a great weapon if they use him right. Yeah, the problem is he's been showing drops since training camp. That's the problem. Johnny says, how does Shane survive after drafting? How does Shane survive never drafting a quarterback in the 3 years he's been here and going into this season with only Azudu as the backup tackle? Johnny, I think your question is an answer. I think that's like a rhetorical question. I agree. Mike says Daboll seriously needs to answer for this game plan. Time to restart fresh completely. Daniel Jones had a good second half, says A2. Mostly after the game was pretty much done, but at least he gave an effort. Defense was absolutely useless. Yep, that's well said. Big Dash says he's pissed off. Big Dash, I keep saying we're going to do this Creator Series podcast. Maybe this is the week we do it. If not this week, next week. Sometime in the next few, though, I would love to have you on the pod coming up soon because I love doing that with Authentic. And I think it's time to continue those types of conversations because it's too much of the same old. Got to hear from the content creators. Got to hear from the fans. We got to figure this out. Manzo says the Giants draft for position, not talent. That is a recipe for disaster. Yep, need-based draft. Mike says Daboll had to beef Wink and make him leave. Now the defense is cooked. You said it, Mike, not me. A2 says Burns was playing today. Wow. Matt says Shane's best year was the year he wasn't trying to be good. As he has tried to make the team better, they have gotten worse. So that's a very interesting point. Joey B says, can we go get John Gruden? Feels like he's blackballed. Alex says horrible coaching today. Agree. A2 says Daboll's play calling today made high school coaches feel better about themselves. How is the diet going? All he really cares about anyways. David says, why do so many Giants players play with a big swinging mouthpiece hanging from their face mask? Use it in your mouth or take it off and they will play better. It's not just Giants players. I think it's a lot of guys in general. That's like player specific too. Just like types of helmets guys wear. Timothy says, why would they trade Azeez? He's an inexpensive depth piece on a team with very limited depth. Well, not their draft pick. Kayvon coming back, their draft pick. I agree with you. You don't want to give up young pass rush, but he's also a player who's been hurt a lot in his career, and he's healthy and producing right now outside of this game. So it's like you kind of want to – you can understand why you'd want to get something for that expiring contract asset, before maybe you don't want to re-sign that player, see him hurt again, and now you could have gotten assets, All right, let's see. But I agree. It's not like again, like if you subscribe to the point I said earlier about like you can't give away good players, then you would follow what you're saying. Dan says it seems like Daboll is in over his head at this point. I agree. Alex says Joe and Daboll have to go. Maybe Bill Belichick goes to Dallas and they beat us for years to come. Last place in NFC East for next decade. Nice job, Mara. How about Dak Prescott getting caught on camera saying we effing suck on the sidelines today as they're losing to Atlanta? Holy cow. Mike says, yep, Shane too. Dan says the team is undisciplined and lacks toughness. That falls squarely on the coaching. Yep. A2 says Daniel Jones is 24, 43, and 1 in his career. Ty says, what is Daboll really feeling? Or how are we really feeling about Daboll? It seemed like he throws him. Are you talking about Daniel, I guess? It seems like he throws him under the bus weekly. Well, today Daboll's attitude seemed to be like the offense did well enough and the defense didn't, which, yes, the defense didn't give them a good enough chance today, but you scored 22 points, including 7 in the first half where you had 0 passing yards. I mean, the first half looked like the Jets game last year in the rain when DeVito came in. That's what it looked like. Alex says they talked about smart, tough, and dependable. Haven't heard that in a while. Dan says, I have a feeling this team will start to quit on Daboll as they continue to lose. Start to quit? Deontay Banks quit twice in the last month. But yes, Dan, your point is well taken. Diggy says, Pat, I don't know if you can see the sideline, but one of the 2-point tries, I think I saw Daboll say something like, if they could give him an effing chance regarding the O-line and Jones. Do you know about that? No, but I was watching Daboll during both of those, and I saw him venting extreme frustration at both of them. And especially on the one, I think it was the second one, there was nobody open on the passing concepts. And I didn't even think the protection was bad. I just thought the routes they ran against the Commanders' coverage, there was nothing open. I really think in the first game, I thought Daboll, and I thought Daboll on offense, out schemed in a lot of ways Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. I thought in this game, Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. outcoached Daboll. Betch says, ask Brian Daboll if he's going to give up play calling. D-Pat says, young guy needs some reps. Hyatt over Slayton. Cough. Tank. Yeah, right. No, I hear you. NYOG says, is Deonte Banks Eli Apple? He is not flippant about wanting to be great. He wants to be great. Eli Apple was more or less mature. Deonte, though, I really don't know where this is all coming from Banks. I do think it has to do with the amount of pressure put on him and the defense by the offensive struggles the last couple of years. That's my opinion. Samuel says, totally disgusted with this team. D-Pat says, I am sending the Panthers some boom chaga now. Dan says, how about not being able to get off the field on 3rd and 18? Embarrassing. Terrible. Missed tackle, Drew Phillips. Bad angle, missed tackle, Tyler Nubin. I mean, what are we doing? I like Tyler Nubin a lot as a kid. I think he wants to be great. I think he's got some great talents and tendencies. But the young man looks lost out there in this scheme and on this field. I think it's fair to say they miss Wink Martindale on defense. I think that's fair to say. And Shane Bowen's been very accountable, talking about he has to be better, defense has to be better. But, I mean, holy shit. I mean, they had 31 takeaways last year as a defense. How many do they have this year? Let's look it up. NFL team stats. Let's see. So the Giants in 17 games last year had 31 takeaways. This year, they have 7 in 9 games. And they have, I believe, 1 interception on the season. Paulo says, when can we fairly judge Daboll and Shane? I get Gettleman did leave a mess, but his team has felt closer to a rebuild than contending the last 2 years. Makes me question moves such as the Burns trade. The Burns trade, where they gave up a pick that they could have drafted a corner with, and they used money that they could have re-signed Saquon with. I mean, and you still could have gotten an edge rusher that helps you. Holy cow. Totally agree. Yeah, listen, blaming it on Gettleman at this point is just propaganda. Anybody who's still blaming it on Dave Gettleman is selling you Giants propaganda. That's what that is. And this is what happens with the Giants, too. This is why I was fighting the scapegoating of Daniel Jones and only Daniel Jones and only Deonte Banks or whatever, is because this is what tends to happen. Like, I could show you quotes about so many guys, Giants related, or the Giants are standing behind, and how dare you question this person? And then when push comes to shove and it's time to be accountable, those same people get thrown under the bus if it means saving someone else's hide. Mike says 0-5 at home. 0-5 at home. I mean, 22 points at home for the Giants feels like 50, right? A2 says bring back Gettleman. NYOG says, will they now bench Daniel Jones now that they are up to the 3rd pick? I mean, didn't he play too well to be benched in this game? I don't know. This is what always happens with the Giants. They're in these awkward spots. Tank says, I really loved our game plan. LOL. 0 yards at the half was almost impressive. What are we even doing at this point? Exactly, Tank. It's not a real thing. A2 says always starting all over again. Not even, yep. Thanks. Always starting all over again. Sign of a failed franchise, in my opinion. Yep. Diggy says, Pat, do you think Nabers will turn on Jones and turn into a toxic teammate? I do think his attitude and some of the things he says reflect that he's, even if he's being honest, that, it doesn't doesn't reflect well. I do think, and I do think he's not used to this losing. Today, definitely pointing out that he doesn't call the plays and pointing out that the Commanders have the right guys and the Giants need to find the right guys. I mean, he's a 21-year-old rookie saying this. A2 says, Nabers throwing Daboll under the bus. I love it. Intel says, shaking my head. A2 says, daily news saving money, baby. Alpha says, Pat, we cannot open up the game with an unenthusiastic, non-inspiring, or motivating quarterback. That's fair. Intel thinks the Giants will win 5 games. Intel says Joe Shane needs to explain his decision. Bangkok says, Pat, can you ask Daboll if the Carolina game is now a must-win? And if he loses Carolina, does he then feel pressure that he's going to get fired? We can ask that for sure. He is the odds-on favorite, or he was going into this week to get fired. He was the odds-on favorite. Dennis Allen in New Orleans ain't looking that safe. I will say that. Dan says if they lose to Carolina, he shouldn't be allowed on the plane back to the States. Sauce P says we put some respect on Washington. We swept you. Definitely put respect on Washington, no doubt about it. Washington sweeps the Giants for the first time since 2021. Jaden Daniels is that man. He's that dude. And Washington's offensive line bullied the Giants' defensive line today. And, just them having capable coaching. No one's sitting here saying that Dan Quinn's Andy Reid, but just getting Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera out of here and putting Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury and these guys in here. I mean, look at the difference. Alpha says, I think the whole team is ready to turn on the quarterback. It's not just the quarterback, though. Jaden is the best quarterback in the NFC, says Sauce P. Hey, he is that man. What do you want me to say? He is that man. MJ says, tank for Cam Ward. We need to start over. New coaching, new management, new quarterback. Chris says, Jaden was supposed to be our quarterback. Sauce P says, let me guess. They're due for a win. We are doing them just like we do everyone, belt to ass. That's a Saquon Barkley quote. Bring on Pittsburgh and Dallas. We will dominate you, says Sauce P. Washington's Super Bowl coming. Super Bowl. Ooh, wow. Big prediction there from Sauce P. MJ says this defense is soft. They can't stop the run. Totally, MJ. No doubt. They can't stop the run. They can't get off the field on third down. They can't tackle. The corners can't make plays on the ball. They don't force turnovers. They're soft. D-Pat says 1 winning season and the commie trolls coming out of the woodworks. Commie. Oh, Commanders. Okay. Intel says Daniel Jones doesn't elevate the team. Mark says, I'm a Commanders fan. I have great respect for the Giants team and fans. No to the Dallas Cowboys. MJ says Banks is a corner and can't make a play on the ball when it's in the air. He was not a good pick. He's better in press man, but he's not playing well. Alpha says, yes, Jones played at his average level. Whenever does Jones drag the team to victory, score 35-plus points? Yep, doesn't happen. Then again, his coach had a scheme that had him with 0 points and 0 passing yards at halftime. MJ says Kafka is one of the best clipboard holders in the NFL. Diggy says, Pat, was Nabers interviewed after the game? If so, what did he say? So we covered this earlier, but I'll say it again because I do feel like it deserves to be said again. So 2 especially noteworthy Malik Nabers quotes after the game. First, Nabers was asked about, so he rationalized amid his disappointment that he would rather build something from the ground up because, quote, it feels better when you come from the mud and you start winning successfully. When asked if the Giants can do that here, though, Nabers gave an interesting answer. Quote, yeah, you've just got to build. You've got to build up. You've got to put the right people in place to be successful. You've got to get the right keys. You've got to get the right guys on the team to win. Obviously, the Commanders have done that. They've got the right guys that they want to be on the team, and they're winning. Wow. Man, oh, man, what a comment from a 21-year-old rookie. And about the run-heavy play calling early on and the did you see it coming and the second half success coming? He said, when you run the clock out in the first half, you're scratching in the second half to try to score points as many as possible. As an offense, you've got to be versatile. You've got to be able to run. You've got to be able to pass. You can't pick between half and half what you want to do. But like I said, I'm not the play caller. So those are Malik Nabers' comments. Something that will definitely continue to be talked about. Intel says, Pat, I would never understand. It's been 10 years. They can't fix the O-line. The Lions did it. Yep. Penei Sewell, man. What a player. Nabers is good, but seems to not have that good endurance. By the end of games, he always looks gassed and runs his routes slower, says MJ. Yeah, also, he nearly cost them a couple times in the second half by running his routes not to the depth that they needed to be on those conversions. He got fortunate on some of those. Greedy says, wow. He's probably talking about some of those stats we listed. The Giants are a cut-and-paste team, and Joe Schoen must be fired after the season, says Hank. Joey B says, do you think we trade for anyone at the deadline? No. Or do we just get rid of players for picks? And if we lose to Carolina, do you see them benching Jones for the injury savings the rest of the season? Jones will get benched eventually, I think, for the injury savings. I mean, kind of tough to do it after a game like this. Acquiring players would be a true move of a desperate regime that thinks it's going to get fired. So if the Giants acquire somebody right now for something expensive, now you know that the general manager is feeling the heat. That's what that would be. Bangkok says, Pat, it wasn't all Daniel Jones' fault, but he was just as much a part of it as Daboll's horrible play calling. That was a horrible fumble and led to a Washington touchdown. Of course, it was a horrible play. I mean, yeah, Bangkok, yes, he fumbled, but like that was a screen pass where he snapped the ball, play action, and the second he turned to throw it, the guy was hitting his arm. Like I just, how can you blame that play on him? I don't understand. A2 says 1 year fluke, same thing happened with Joe Judge. The owner has no clue what he's doing, but he wants to be the man. That's what happens when your success in life is being the son of a rich person. Ouch. Bangkok says, let's see. I also don't understand why Daboll calls for a screen when they were running so effectively. He has no feel for the flow of the game now, it seems. 2022 was a long time ago. Flannel says, Pat, Daboll needs to step away from play calling again. Going for 2 points was just as stupid this week as it was last week. GCN says, Giants better call Bill Belichick now. Tell him they are firing everyone. He can run the organization. The Bears look bad. The coach lost the team. Bill with Bears' top defense and franchise QB. A2 says, what props to the super chatters, you guys and gals rock. Yes, props to the super chatters indeed. Right now, that is Joel, Daniel, Jonathan, Patrick 3 times dropping the super chats. We also have Black Love 23 says, bring in Louis Riddick, Bill Belichick, and Cam Ward. I like B Love with the plan, the full plan with the GM, the quarterback, and the coach all in there, really bringing some juice to the chat. I appreciate that. And yes, Patrick Evans, MVP, performance right now on the super chats. If you guys ask a super chat or pay for a super chat, your comment or question will be elevated to the top of the thread here in the Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard post-game podcast. I'm sitting in MetLife Stadium after talking to Brian Daboll and the players in the locker room after the game and bringing you my in-person analysis of what went down in this game with the Giants, their players, and falling to 2-7, 0-5 at home, 0-4 division, and 4-12-1 against NFC East foes since Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll took over in 2022. All right, let's see. So looks like the Eagles won a tight game with kind of a crazy ending there. I haven't been watching it. But that win over the Jaguars means the division now sits at Washington 7-2, Philadelphia 6-2, Dallas 3-5, Giants 2-7. So that is the NFC East at the moment. Theodore says, why do the Giants keep Azudu and Neal? Pretty clear that there's no circumstance in which either will play. To me, it's just to try to prevent them from being huge talking points I think that it's strategic in order for the general manager and coach and the operation, especially the general manager in the front office. The more Evan Neal and Josh Azeez are out there playing poorly, the more of a conversation it is front of mind they are. When they're not on the field, those of us like yourself, Theo, who know and understand what it means that they're not playing are talking about it, but it's not as much of a hot button topic as them being on the field giving up 5 or 6 sacks. So that's my opinion. But it still obviously reflects on your talent evaluation, right? Flannel says the Giants aren't in position to dump Wan'Dale yet. They're thin at receiver. A2 says, good question, Theo. Hirsch, what's going on? Great to see you. Hall says DJ is balling out. Rookie Move says, I'm rooting for Daboll, of course, as a fan. However, after games, who is he accountable to? Does Shane meet with him and ask him what's going on and or question reasoning behind certain decisions? Yes, they discuss these things. They collaborate. Shane is very much a part of the operation. So, even though he's not calling the plays on the sideline and coaching the games, Joe is involved in everything with this organization. So even second guessing or questioning Daboll's motives or discussing plays after the game, the general manager is still a big part of these game plans and how the Giants approach every week. So to me, it's impossible to not – like they're tied at the hip. To me, Daboll's successes are Joe's successes. Daboll's failures are Joe's failures. Joe's successes are Daboll's successes, and so on. But this is a general manager run and driven process. Hirsch says, Pat, what do you think about the Giants drafting Cam Ward or Jackson Dart to be our next quarterback? I think they have to draft a quarterback. Still need to personally, as far as the evaluations go, I need to continue to do more work on these guys, and I will continue to. Cam Ward obviously having a great season. Dart, an interesting player as well. A lot of names. I can't sit here and tell you right now, this is the guy the Giants need to get. I'm not an expert on it yet. And obviously, even when you learn a lot about these quarterbacks, a lot of people get it wrong anyway. NYOG says, I agree, Wan'Dale Robinson is too small the way they are using him. He lives and dies on yak, never runs, routes past the sticks. And also, he's not a Jaden Reed or Zay Flowers or any of these other guys who are so lightning fast at that size that they're excellent at the catch and run, Silly Goose says, I didn't know Scott Baio covers the Giants. Love it, Silly. I have gotten that lookalike before, the Scott Baio lookalike. Jay Fed says the quarterbacks in this year's draft are all trash. Mike wants to keep Azeez and Slayton. Ryan says, Pat, this is pertaining to the 2-point conversion calls. Can you please ask Brian Daboll if analytics factor in the league average or his terrible bottom of the league Daniel Jones run offense? Right. Good point. Like selective analytics, That's a good point, Ryan. That's pretty funny. All right. Let's get to the next one here. Let's see. H5000 says, I said at the time that Daniel Jones signed his $80 million contract that he would have to make big plays and win games or he'd be gone. However, anybody that puts this game on DJ has Pop Warner acumen. Oh, totally. Everything you just said, I agree with. Yeah, this is not a Daniel Jones loss, no doubt about it. Steven says, not arguing you ascent of the Giants, but how do you explain the Commanders when you say you don't become good overnight? They sure look like they got rid of players, cleaned house. You think the year, and then in a flash they're good, right? No, that's the fair counterpoint, Steven. I mean, I think they already had building blocks in. So Brian Robinson Jr., running back, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver. Adding pieces like an Austin Eckler, a Zach Ertz, for sure changing the head coaching staff and the general manager and getting the quarterback. That's where it starts, right? So to me, Steven, if the argument would be, well, Washington did it, to me, it's like, well, yeah, they brought in a general manager, a coach, and a quarterback who all did their jobs better than the previous guys in here at those spots. So to me, that's an argument for starting over. Now, someone could come back and say, well, that's an argument for letting Joe Shane and Brian Daboll draft a new quarterback, and maybe that new quarterback can be their Jaden Daniels. So you could go that route as well. But to me, the Commanders becoming good overnight was more about changing the way that they operated and evaluated. And then also, obviously, it helps to have the number 2 pick, right? Like if the Giants had the number 2 pick this year and they had Jaden Daniels, probably be a different conversation, right? Alpha Dog says 3 drafts and not much talent to rebuild with, just saying. Dan says this loss wasn't solely on Jones, but he plays his part in the losing as shown by the pass attempt that was ruled a fumble instead of tucking the ball away and taking a sack. I think that was on him so quickly that he didn't even have time to do that. I think putting that on him is ludicrous, in my opinion. Dan says he is good for at least one stupid mistake like that per game in year 6, simply inexcusable. Gerald says, I would hate to give up Azeez for a 3rd-round pick. I don't believe giving away good players and making other teams better. Man, a 3rd would be great for a player. Holy cow. Bangkok says, I did love seeing Daniel Jones play with visible anger. His touchdown run was awesome. Yes, it was. NYOG says, Saquon is cooking the Jaguars. That is why the regime may need to go. Constant reminder of their ineptitude. Let's check out Saquon's final stat line. 27 carries, 159 yards, and a rushing touchdown, plus 3 catches for 40 yards and another touchdown. Oh, my goodness. Plus, I'm sure you guys all saw that that highlight with him jumping over that guy. Saquon did lose a fumble that Trayvon Walker returned for a touchdown in the 3rd quarter. So not a perfect game. Did fumble the ball away. Did lead to a Jaguars touchdown. But, those numbers. And that's what I always say about – so, like, Lamar Jackson I always think is interesting, like when people complain about – or when we talk about Daniel Jones and his shortcomings and the Giants, right? One thing I think it's important to know is the great players in the league, they're not perfect, right? They drop passes if they're receivers. They fumble the ball if they're running backs. They throw interceptions if they're quarterbacks, whatever. The difference with the great players is not that they don't make mistakes. It's that they just make big plays too, right? So in other words, like Lamar Jackson will have games where he has 2 turnovers, and they might both be bonehead-looking turnovers where it was like, that was incredibly avoidable, Lamar. Why did you throw it there? Or why didn't you tuck it away? Or, whatever it is. The difference is he also throws 4 touchdowns in that same game, right? So Saquon Barkley today, with that lost fumble, obviously it's like you give some, you take it away. But I mean, let's think about it. With those numbers he has, what was that, 200 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns, still making a lot of big plays. Same as today, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones with a touchdown, rushing, and 2 passing touchdowns. So he had that fumble. In my opinion, that was the protection, not him. The protection on a play call where you can't afford that protection and that lack of protection. But still, he produced, he bounced back. He got you in the end zone 3 times. So that's what you want to see. All right, let's see. D-Kid says, Shane said that they didn't pay a $40 million quarterback to hand it off to a $12 million running back, and then Daboll proceeded to hand it off 16 times in the first half. You can't make this up. Also, the Eagles did pay a running back that for a $40 million quarterback to hand it to him, and they are 6-2. Steve says, whatever happened to Jalen Hyatt? They just don't trust him. JDJ says, too many wide open receivers on Washington. What in the boom chaga were we covering? Well, JDJ, it was a combination of coverage breakdowns and also 0 pass rush on Jaden Daniels from the Giants today. Like 0. Let's check the pressure numbers. So 0 sacks for the Giants, 2 quarterback hits, and let's see. The Giants had 4 pressures on 25 Jaden Daniels dropbacks. 4. Wow. 4 pressures, 2 hits, no sacks. Rookie says, any sneak peek on the questions you'll be asking Shane at the bye? No, definitely have to sit down and prepare for that separately. This was, I almost feel like a player right now. Just focused on this game right now, Rookie, but I will get to that, and then we'll move on and do our best and grind and keep working at it. Now, we'll talk about that, though, for sure on the podcast as we go. Maybe if Big Dash wants to come on the pod, we do a content creator pod. Maybe one of the things we'll talk about is kind of like unpacking what questions need to be asked in that presser, what the fans think. That's probably a good theme for an upcoming chat. Bagok says, why not give Evan Neal a chance? He can't be any worse than what we saw today from left tackle. Well, because then people will be talking about it. Dave G says, what's going on with the Evan Neal situation? I just think they know how it's going to go when he goes on the field, and they don't want people talking about it because it reminds everyone he was the number 7 overall pick. 0 interceptions from the secondary after 9 games. Doesn't get any more pathetic than that, says Bangkok. Steve says the fish stinks from the head. Mara and Tish have to get their shit together. Yeah, why haven't we heard from someone in the Tish family? I have no idea. Thierry says, what do you think the Giants should do at the end of the season, Pat? I think they should clean house, Thierry. I do. Matt says everything Mara hates is taking place. Yes, well said, Matt. Well said. Play calling is trash, says Fox. It's not all on Jones. Johnny says when Shane re-signed Daniel Jones, he became the quarterback this regime chose. They shouldn't get to choose another, but Mara seems to get emotional with these decisions. It's all in Mara's hands now, but I agree with you. Daniel Jones also has the injury clause that can force them to bench him, Philip says. That's true. Ashtray says Jaden Daniels is not that dude yet. Their O-line is way better than the Giants. Ashtray, could you name me 3 guys on the offensive line for Washington? Can you? Seriously. Their starting line today was Brandon Coleman, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Sam Cosmi, and Andrew Wiley. Hardly star-studded group, including a backup left tackle. I mean, they're not supposed to be a great O-line. And they're not a great O-line. They're an overachieving O-line. Again, great quarterbacks. This is what happens. How serious was Shane on moving up this past offseason to draft a quarterback? After watching Hard Knocks, it doesn't seem like Shane listens to anyone but himself. Johnny, I definitely got that takeaway as well, especially like he does collaborate and talk to these people, but like in the Saquon situation, it was like he was getting good advice from some of these guys and was dead set on doing what he wanted to do. He did try to trade up. He wanted to trade up, but it wasn't happening with the teams that were up there. They had quarterback needs as well. Jaden Daniels is never going to happen. Like, it's interesting that the Giants wanted him and liked him, but he was closer to being the number 1 pick, really, as far as talent and people's opinion, than being the number 3 pick. And then Drake May was the other guy they really liked, but they couldn't get up there. So, yes, they were very serious. They wanted to replace Daniel Jones this offseason. They just didn't do it. The interesting part of it as well is that once they didn't get those 3, they did not draft like one of the 1B guys like J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix. That was what it was most interesting. George says, did the team quit on Brian Daboll? There has been some quit. Deontay Banks, the most obvious. I think the defense is just completely lost, and I think guys' shoulders have been slumping for a while now. Not accusing all the players of quitting there, but I do think that, they're out of answers. They're out of solutions. Kenneth says, Pat, the current Giants situation reminds me of 15 years of losing that followed the 63 season when Pete Rozelle stepped in to rescue the NFL's most important franchise, George Young, etc. Yep, Kenneth, well said, well said. We were talking earlier about whether somebody needs to step in again from the league or whether the Giants would invite an outsider to do so. I doubt it, but there is precedent for you, as you put it. It would probably require an ownership disagreement for that to happen, like it did last time. Jim says, Pat, Daniel Jones is running well today. He ran over 2 defenders on the goal line. Yep. I don't put this loss on Daniel. Diggy says, Pat, those Nabers quotes seem pretty bad, but at the same time, him saying he wants to build it from the ground up and earn his success is refreshing to hear. Hopefully he won't be a cancer to the team. Agree on all counts there, Diggy. Will the Nabers interview be posted on YouTube? I think the Giants are going to have that on their YouTube channel. I did not video record it. When I walked in, he was already doing the interview, and I jumped in and heard those answers, but I was outside the crush of people and cameras. There were a lot of cameras in the Giants locker room today. I got hit in the back of the head with a microphone by one of the TV guys. Kind of crazy. Jim says, I don't disagree with Nabers. Keep him over Daboll and Shane. Bangkok says, you make a good point, Pat. I guess Daniel Jones had no chance on that fumble. Horrible play call. Joey B says, what's the vibe of the coaching staff? Is Daboll calmer this season amid all this losing? Disgraceful 100th season. Yep. Yeah, don't forget, this is their centennial season. The vibe of the coaching staff, like Bowen's been accountable, Jerome's been accountable. Everybody knows it's bad. Daboll's trying to pretend things are okay and keep a lid on his temper because he knows that having a Joe Judge-like press conference can put you over the top. So he's trying not to do that. But essentially, he's either not answering questions or just glossing over things and not fully going into detail. It's almost like a rote, kind of dead inside attitude coming out of the team is how it feels to me. Killer Cam says, sorry, I'm late, Pat. They put you in the utility room messing with you. Yeah, no, so this is one of those radio or television booths. I'll give you guys a look here. So where I'm sitting, I'm looking out on the field here at MetLife Stadium. And so I'm sitting basically down the hall from where I sit. This is the area that radio guys sit in. John Mara and ownership have another box. Some TV and stuff. There's a lot of guys over here doing different jobs on radio, ownership boxes. The coaches, a lot of the coaches are up here as well, like Kafka and those guys are up here. And then we're down the hall. But this is where I'm sitting, is facing the field. Ed says, Pat, why aren't more people on Joe Shane a lot more? Most of the best players on the team are from Gettleman, and we know how well he did. If you notice, Ed, a lot of the national reporters are very friendly at the moment to Shane and to the Giants' operation and current regime. I think that he is. I think that he works the narrative. I think he's very proactive at it. I think this current Giants regime, including Daboll, are proactive at it, and I think that's why you're not always hearing 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. That's why I think you're always hearing, a lack of criticism, and it always ends up that somebody like me is viewed as sticking out like a sore thumb, when all I'm doing, I feel like, is saying what I see. Ricardo says Daniel Jones' era is definitely done. Not for nothing, Coach Daboll has been horrible. Killer Cam says, Black Fox's question is, in Phil Simms' days, how bad were the Giants? Phil Simms? 2 Super Bowls? Your boy Javi says, Pat, who are some GM candidates we should begin considering? Shane is playing checkers. Let's get into that in our next chat, Javi. Upcoming when we're preparing for the Joe Shane bye-week press conference, let's get into that. We'll put a pin in that, Javi. So we'll do more chats in the upcoming week, and I'll get into that. But they're going to kick me out of the press box here at MetLife, so I do have to get going soon. All right. Let's see. Ken Peters says, went to the game today, got a Lawrence Taylor bobblehead and our 7th loss. So worth $1,000 and 7 hours of my life. I'm done. Ken Peters speaking for the entire Giants faithful with that comment. Patrick says, when is Kayvon back? I believe after the bye. ECA says, how can we get Nabers to Washington? little disconcerting seeing Nabers over on the sideline talking to Daniels during timeouts instead of with his own team. I thought that was a little weird. Brett says Hubbard is a better run blocker than Neal. I doubt it. What's up, Pat? Yeah, I doubt that as well. Let's see. Brett M says, Coach Wink. Coach Wink. I hear that. They miss Martindale for sure. Corey says, every loss is a gift at this point. I don't even get angry anymore. Just one step closer to a new quarterback. Rookie Move says, hey, Pat, thank you for doing this. Hope you have a wonderful night after this loss. Thank you, Rookie. Let's see. Steve says, thanks for the realistic take on things, Pat. JDJ, you're welcome, Steve. Thank you for saying that. JDJ says, Daboll is just keeping a poker face during all these postgame interviews. Exactly. Next thing you know, he'll tell us that the only internal issues they have is when they fight over the last slice of pizza. You guys so see through this regime now. Thank you for being on board, understanding that I'm not selling any lines of BS. Like, I'm telling you what's going on here. Jim says, thank you, Pat. We appreciate you. Barry says, Pat, do you think Daboll picking his own quarterback is going to change his team? I do not. Tariq says, NFL draft, Shedeur Sanders. No one was talking about Cam Ward till this year playing cream puffs like Duke. I don't trust anything in 1 year. Tariq, I think that's a fair point and something you need to be careful of. Rick Hoffman is going to close us out here with a $20 super chat from Canada. Says, I don't trust any reporter who addresses Brian Daboll as Dabes. All enablers and are not Pat Leonard. Rick, well said. He is Brian. He is Brian Daboll. He is not coach. He is not Dabes. People treating anything with kid gloves around here, not for me. We are going to bring it to you straight and truthful and factual. No agendas, just the facts. As he says in LA Confidential, just the facts, Jack, just the facts. Want to thank everybody, especially our super chatters today. Joel kicked us off. Daniel, Jonathan, Patrick went on a run, a heater. Thank you so much, Patrick. B-Love23 dropped a couple in as well. Really appreciate that. He also said if they lose to Carolina, we need to clean house. And Rick closed us out with a $20 super chat. Let's see. Big Dog says Cam Ward was a dog at Washington State. He's been flying under the radar. Interesting. Joey B says, do you think if we get a new GM and coach that Wink Martindale would come back? I do think if Giants ownership reached out and tried to get that to happen, that I do think that it wouldn't shock me. I mean, let's just face it. Wink Martindale's in college. He belongs in the NFL. His scheme is made for the pros. He's had top defenses in multiple different years, and certainly the defense kept them afloat last year, and now they're scrambling as a team, as a defense, as a roster, as an offense, every which way. I do believe if he were here, they would be better for it. But with this current regime, it just wasn't a fit. But yeah, Joe, I don't think that's out of the question. Greedy says, funny that you have a bad reputation for asking the questions that most of us knowledgeable real fans want to know. Greedy, thank you so much for saying that. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And listen, I'm not I'm wrong sometimes too, of course. And I've worn it when I have been. But not I haven't been wrong about anything that was going to happen with this year's team yet. Brett says, Wink head coach. We'll leave it there. We were brought to you by MyBookie Sportsbook. 10-year anniversary, rolling out the red carpet for sports bettors. Use the promo code PATSPICS on the link in all my social media profiles, and you will get a 100% match on your first deposit of $50 or more, all the way up to $1,000. Plus, you'll get a $10 casino chip. MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Go to those Pats picks. Daniel Jones, anytime touchdown, Giant sprinkle on the prop bets. Hit today. Making you that money. Also brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order, and if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Estate 98 Coffee is a specialty coffee concentrate that's perfect when you want to make a quick cup of coffee and skip the lines. It takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced or hot coffee. It's great as a mixer for espresso martinis, and each bottle can make up to 16 cups. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get an exclusive offer for 80% off your first order. estate98.com/talkinball to get an exclusive 80% off your first order. Let's see. All right. Looks like we're wrapped up in the chat. We're wrapped up here from MetLife Stadium, and looking forward to doing more Talkin' Ball with Pat Leonard chats with you guys in the days and weeks to come. Stay tuned on my X and Twitter account, PLeonardNYDN, and on my Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube, PL on NFL, for new Giants content and alerts on when I'm going live next. More lives coming. We'll have a First Down with Benny Fowler, again, breaking down the Week 9 NFL action, and all kinds of content and new offerings coming. I promise you're not going to want to miss it. Brian Burns post-game interview, full post-game interview. I will be posting that later tonight. Check that on my YouTube page. You can check that out. And please go read my New York Daily News game story now, where I have quotes from various Giants. Also, will be writing a story in the morning on Azeez Ojulari on the New York Daily News website. Talk to him about the idea of him getting possibly traded out of New York. This has been Pat Leonard from the New York Daily News and the Believe Network here on Talkin' Ball Live postgame with Pat Leonard. I was about to sign off. George Lewis just asked me, are you doing a trade deadline show, Pat? George, I was debating whether or not to go live on Monday, as I tend to, or wait until we go, like a Tuesday night, do a live then. A Tuesday night live is not a bad idea. I'm just going to have to see what time is smart to do that, when I can fit that in. Maybe we do a Tuesday night chat. Maybe we do it Wednesday to process what we saw on the trade deadline. So I will keep you guys updated on that. Maybe do a Wednesday night where we process everything we saw on Tuesday and also forecast what's coming in that Munich game against the Carolina Panthers. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. The numbers were big time tonight on our Talking Ball with Pat Leonard podcast and postgame live. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you so much to the super chatters. And remember, before you head out, hit those like buttons. Show us that you like what we did here tonight. Take care. See you later.